Join me in this conversation with Aman Johar, CEO of DataCurve, where we discuss the state of fragmented data graveyards, the issue of identity problem, knowing the customer, and of AI and Web3 solving for identity with context. Aman paints for us a vision of experiential marketing in sports and entertainment, and so much more. Dig in. Welcome to the AI for Marketing show. I'm your host, ANJLEENA, with many years of experience marketing in the tech industry. This show is for marketers to keep up with the pace of AI. We host conversations with leaders on the leading edge, experimenting and navigating the world of AI for marketing. And I'm thrilled to have with me today Aman Johar, who is the CEO of DataCurve and is an expert in AI and Web3 innovation. Aman, welcome to the show.
Thank you, ANJLEENA, for having me, and it's a pleasure to be here. Congratulations on the new show here.
Thank you so much. Super excited, and thank you for the support. So before we dive in, Aman, tell us a little bit more about what you're busy with DataCurve, and maybe then also a little bit about like what excites you about AI in marketing.
Sure. I mean, there's so much to love about AI and marketing these days. It's impossible to say what if there's one thing that excites me, right? But just to give you a little background about ourselves. So I started DataCurve around this time last year, and the whole idea was to bring the value of AI to fragmented pieces of data. And you see that across all organizations, and especially in the marketing function, it's really about the fragmented data across all of your organization. The creative doesn't talk to, the data guys, and the data guys don't talk to the strategy guys. And they all rely on their little bit of siloed pieces of information to make very, very strong decisions about the organization itself. So that's where we saw the opportunity, where we said, at a fundamental level, if you can have these pieces of data talk to each other, you can simplify a lot. And as AI has evolved over the last year, it is now making it really incredibly easy to not just build better solutions, but also to look ahead and be more more proactive in understanding your customers. And that's where I think the future of marketing will be. So from my vantage point, I think when I think about marketing, traditionally it's been divided into two worlds, right? The one is the creative side of it. And the second one is a very tech intensive, data driven analytics side of marketing, right?
Yep.
And and again, both of those functions don't really talk the same language either. So it is in between that chasm is the biggest opportunity to build. And that's what I think AI is solving for us today, whether it is, deploying AI and natural language processing to talk to your data, just like you and I are having a conversation and say, hey, give me the top 5 customers who walked into the mall last week and purchased more than $1,000 worth of goods, right?
Yeah.
That's a conversation now you can have with your data. And equally exciting on the creative side is you can have the exact same conversation with these image generation tools and those video generation tools that are now coming out to say, hey, just create me a scene or create me a digital piece of art, so to say.
Yeah.
And you can describe whatever you want in that. Now, when you start to blend both of these, you're coming from the data side to say, okay, who are my top customers, or how I am really reaching out to my biggest fans, supporters, whatever it is, right? And now on the creative side, you're blending it with things that they would like and they would understand. And now you can do that at scale. So that is so much more exciting about bringing AI into the world of marketing.
So I think you already touched on so many things, right? Like what's going on, nodding along as to like what's going on in the world of marketing, right? Like with the siloed data. And what a phrase that I've started like thinking in terms of is like we have data graveyards, right? And there's really an opportunity to kind of like do the plumbing and connect these up, right? So that you can actually turn these graveyards into gold mines, if you will. And I think you also touched on, all the different applications that are sprouting up, right? Like whether it's in creative or whether it's in data analytics, etc., that can help marketers do a better job. Um, so, I know that DataCurve is definitely solving some of these, problems for their customers already. Um, so, paint us a vision, Aman, of how AI solutions can actually solve this problem of data fragmentation and can lead to monetization. Maybe based on what you're seeing already, or based on the vision and the excitement, that's out there for real world companies, right, that are drowning in this data.
Yeah. So you touched upon two very interesting elements. One is the data graveyards, and the second is the drowning of resources, people, et cetera, in data, right? So, so this is interesting from an AI perspective in this manner, right? So what really is happening is we are creating data at an unprecedented scale here, right? Every organization is it's kind of like the Moore's law. Every 2 years now you are doubling your data, right?
Yeah.
And you're creating terabytes and terabytes of data every day. All of that is going into some sort of a storage, whether it's on Google, Amazon, you name pick your cloud. It all goes there to live and die. Dies because organizations are not looking at their historical data, number one. Second, the shelf life of all these campaigns that are running is so short now that unless you keep churning new and new things based on the latest and the greatest trends, you're you're not going to be doing that based off of historical data. But this is where the dichotomy is, right? The historical data is where you can connect the pieces and connect the information to come up with a much richer profile about who your customers are and what do they like and what do they not like, right? So that if you're a LeBron James fan, you're not bombarding them with Steph Curry t-shirts all the time, right? So that's the analysis that can only come in once you understand the behavior of your customers.
Yeah.
And that to me is something where AI can play a huge role because look, for the last so many years now, it has been impossible to humanly look at the data and understand it. So what we need is better ways of interacting with that data, understanding that data, inferring information from that data. Because in a lot of cases, this data is very structured, right? And when you start to now apply Gen AI techniques, everything goes into the unstructured realm.
True.
Right? So how do you run your inferences around that is going to be a big opportunity, and that's where we are definitely excited about that space, and we are building in that space to not only just look at your structured information, but look at all of your social media content, look at what people are talking about on Reddit, look at your other pieces of information that's coming in from your partners, from your customers, put it all together. And very soon, when you start to do that, you realize that at the end of the day, this is not really a data problem in that sense as much as it is an identity problem, right?
Interesting.
So for any brand to understand who their customers are, they have to know the customer.
Right.
And in today's fragmented environment, the identity of the customer is different in all of those fragments. So how do you pull it out and create a unified identity? I think that is the first step. And from there, you can now start to associate data with them and say, okay, this is how this interaction has historically been, and this is what we can forecast how our predictive models are going to work.
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, without the handle, who are you targeting? You know what I mean? Like, so that's important. So also, I mean, if you can, maybe bring it home a little bit in terms of, let's say, like a sports brand, right? Like, or in the sports industry, right? Like, if you can help us sort of like walk through, right? Like, what's the reality, right, these days? Like, where all, what, firstly, starting with like all the different kinds of data, where are they living? What's not even used, what could be used, like, so maybe if we can take hypothetically a scenario which is in the sports world and take us through, right, like what's today and what's possible.
Yeah. So this is not hypothetical. This is actually one of our biggest focus areas is sports and entertainment.
Yeah.
And why? Because look, the Olympics are coming to the US in a couple of years, and we are hosting the FIFA World Cup next year. So there's just a lot of activity that's going on in this space. And and if you think about any sport, right, it is a big coming together of today it's a big coming together of not just the physical element of the sport where the venue is involved and you have 60 70,000 people gathered to watch it together, but also there's the digital element because, well, how are you targeting who are the right people who will be buying your tickets? So just to start, right? That's a simple problem.
Yeah.
Right, but it's a perfect coming together of physical and digital experiences, right?
Yeah.
So now when you look at it from that lens, now you very quickly you start to see that to make it all possible, where is your data? The venue has some data. We are all local here in the Bay Area, so let's pick up Levi Stadium as an example. Well, they have some data, and then the Levi Stadium is working with Ticketmaster, and
Yeah.
Ticketmaster is selling the tickets to the event, so they have some data. Now the stadium in itself has concessions and merchandise. So the concession guys have some data, the merchandise guys have some data. The folks who are processing these payments, they have some other data, right? And then there are sponsors ultimately who are on those jumbotrons. They are always showing you different ads, right? From a
Right.
branding perspective, it's fantastic, but what's the ROI on that, right? Nobody knows, but it's comes out of the branding budget. So as long as it's there, it's gonna be there, right? Now, very quickly, you see that from all of these different people, they're all targeting the 60,000 people inside the stadium, right? Now, and everybody is going by the exact same playbook. Let me get their email. Let me segment them into some demographics. Let me put together, a creative campaign on how to reach out to them. And all of these different players, they are playing by exactly the same playbook. There's no difference. And yet they expect different results. They're like, oh, I'm only getting open rates of less than 1%. Well, there is no differentiation.
Yeah.
Right? So, so from that perspective, now you start to say, okay, let's look at it from a different perspective and bring in the data to say, well, we're going to be identifying who those fans are directly. And because you're all together in this ecosystem, let's start to share data, not the raw data, because nobody is going to share their raw data with each other. That's such a big no-no, right? But a company like ours can now come in and say, okay, we'll look at your data and share specific insights about the fans who you are targeting with you as a brand. Now, if you're a sponsor like a Nike, wouldn't it be fantastic to know that there's 1,000 people in that 60,000 crowd who would spend $1,000 on a sneaker, right? Now, those are the right people to go out and target. So now you can infer behavior from a lot of different fragmented pieces of data, put it all together, and make it a better experience for not just the brands and the venues, but also for the fans. Because now I'm not fatigued opening up the same old emails. I'm not fatigued looking at the same tired playbooks and saying, hey, these brands are giving me offers, but none of those work for me.
I mean, this is absolutely right. Like, this is the scenario that we want to get to, right? Which is stitch together that entire ecosystem of data that's surrounding, right? Like, that's doing a surround sound, really, right? Like, as the fans are walking into the stadium, and then how do you actually, leverage intelligence, right? Like,
Right.
from that surround sound and hone in into the identity of that person, anonymously still, right? Like keeping privacy intact, and render for them the offer or the message that'll actually resonate, right? So that's the vision.
So there's
So
a fine line between being surround sound versus noise, you know?
you said it. Yeah, yeah, totally.
So
That's beautiful. Actually,
we
that
want
takes
to
us
eliminate
another.
that noise, which is the old tired playbooks everybody's playing with. And let's take a step back, look at the data, let the data speak for itself, and let's just orient ourselves in a different way to for
Yeah.
better engagement with your customers.
So totally with you on that vision, absolutely, and that's not being delivered in the market today for sure, right? I mean, I'm a concert goer, in that sports and entertainment vertical, and I definitely don't see that, right, like happening to me. So definitely, there's a potential. I'm just curious about, this vision that you painted, right? Where does AI, and if you want to share a little bit about like Web3 even, like where do these technologies come into play in enabling this vision?
That's a good question, right? So I think AI is probably by now it's ubiquitous, right? Any company that's not at the very least not using a chatbot interface tied to one of these large language models is probably not doing justice to the data that they have,
Mm.
right? So that is just the entry point for bringing in AI. Now, what you do with that AI is completely up to you as an organization. Where we are going with these use cases and thinking about how to develop the right products for this market is starting at the identity layer itself.
I see.
So from an identity, what is if the biggest barrier between people and brands and enterprises, companies, businesses sharing data with each other, the biggest barrier is privacy,
Mhm.
right? So that is something that we've solved for by bringing in Web3, uh, the lessons from Web3.
Mhm.
And how do we make something anonymous, yet something that is also very tangible and actionable,
Mhm.
right? That's how we look at identity. And
Yeah.
and also one thing to understand is identity is changing or it is different in different contexts. So when you bring in the Web3 from an identity perspective and AI from a context perspective, that is a very powerful combination.
Love it. Yeah, totally love
Right?
it. That speaks to me, right? Because content without context, right,
Mhm.
is useless, right?
And identity without context is useless too.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if you're at a concert, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
and I'm bombarding you with offers during the concert or during a game, as a marketer, I'm doing severe injustice to it
Yeah.
because I don't
Yeah.
understand the context right now,
Yeah.
right?
And you
And
may be turning me off completely, you know?
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So without that context, it's very hard to engage with people. And
Yeah.
if you're not going to be engaging with people, it's going to be extra hard for you to monetize them in the future. So, so context, engagement, and then monetization. And quite often I see brands directly talking about, hey, let's monetize the data we have. But hey, what's the context of your data and how are you engaged with those people will determine how you monetize. And if you just jump through everything and say, oh, I just want to monetize, that's probably very short-sighted. And maybe it gives you certain results very quickly, but it's not a long-term winning strategy.
Yeah, absolutely with you on that. And I think that's such a powerful, I guess, shift, right, that you're essentially trying to build out there. Because these have, in a sense, sort of been there in isolation. Just like we were talking about data having been there in isolation, the identity solutions have also had, their own little pocket, and then the engagements channels, right, like are also siloed out. And then, you've got the insights and the context from the data, which is also like a siloed island, right? And what you're talking about is like, let's bring all of this together, right? So that at the end of the day, in the sports and entertainment vertical, for example, it's the fan as well as the brand, right? As well as the sponsors, right? Like all the stakeholders have a win-win-win, right?
Exactly. So
Very powerful.
the way I kind of talk about is that let's start let's de-emphasize the what companies are doing from an optimizing their campaigns perspective. They're optimizing for clicks, they're optimizing for open rates and click-through rates, all of
Yep.
that. Let's de-emphasize that a little bit and focus a little bit more attention on how to have that one-on-one connection with your customers, right? Because that's where, again, going back to the engagement side and the monetization, they can reap significant rewards on that investment rather than optimizing for 0.5% of more open rates,
Yeah.
you know.
With you on that. Totally. So, I mean, I know like these 20, 25 minutes goes by really fast. So I'd like we've given us a flavor, right, of like where your head is at. Anything you want to share as far as like, what data curve is actually finding very interesting challenge wise, and anything you want to share with the viewers as to like what problems are you solving now, right, like with data curve?
Yeah, again, interesting. So things just keep moving when you're building at a breakneck speed too, right? So one thing that has really come out very strongly and positively for us is that, well, we started with the sports entertainment industry, but I think what we are now finding is that the exact same issue is prevalent with the adjacent industries as well, like travel, like hospitality, right?
Mm.
And they're dealing with the same things. How to know your customers better, how to know your users better, and how to create better experiences for them. And when you think about it, take a step back and think about it, it turns out that they're all marketing to the same people over and over again. So it's
Mm.
ANJLEENA wanting to go to a concert, ANJLEENA wanting to go to a Vegas for a show or for a vacation to Florida. Well, it is you. It comes back to the identity of who you are trying to market. And if you know a little bit more about that person behaviorally, your entire marketing to them can change completely. So instead of, and this is what I say, right? Is instead of selling me a $45 hoodie when I go to the Levi Stadium or the Chase Center, why don't you sell me a $10,000 vacation package to Florida where I can go watch a game, take my kids out to Disneyland, do some other things around there, and come back and be refreshed, right? Now, that's a scale of difference in terms of how you can start thinking about the next generation of engagement. And this is what I call experiential marketing, more than just transactional marketing.
It's very interesting the example that you just painted, right? About like targeting you with the vacation offer, right? And an experience offer, right? And not just a vacation. Because for that to come to fruition, so many things need to be talking to each other, right?
Right.
There has to be like obviously the data about you, right? Like your likes, preferences, lifestyle, right? Like even income bracket, like all of that stuff needs to essentially come together. And then the sponsors also need to have that level of I guess like data sharing, right, to be able to then come up with that all in kind of a package that makes sense ultimately to you, right?
Right.
That's a very interesting vision, and definitely it's something that we have like space for. Like we have an appetite for that. We're not seeing it anywhere, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if that's essentially the vision that you and DataCurve team are like trying to build out, then I mean, I applaud you, and we'll stay tuned in to see, right, like what grounds you're shaking as the months go by.
No, thank you for the encouragement there. I think that's really astonishing in terms of just talking to our customers, what we can do to help them, right?
Yeah,
And a lot of times when we talk to them, it's just that they know that the data exists, but it's in one of those graveyards where you have to go in the night
Yeah.
and pull out some of those dead bodies.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go
So
deep,
that's really creepy, right?
but that's but that's what it really amounts to, is pull out that data and
Yeah.
make it actionable in a different way,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, we have spent so much already, right? Like over the last 20, 30 years, right? Like you'd said initially, that all of the data is just being added up to whichever cloud you prefer. So we've just been like, creating mountains and graveyards, right? Like of this data. And
Mhm.
I think definitely AI has a promise, right? Like of helping us make sense of it and actually get out smarter, right? On the other side.
Yes.
So, anything, any lasting thoughts, Amin? I mean, I'd love to, of course, have you back on the show and we can dive in deeper. But this was just to kind of get us a sense of like, how you're viewing the world of data and its readiness, right? Like for AI and marketing. So any lasting thoughts, or how our viewers can be in touch with you, like if they're interested in, finding out more about like what you're up to and the services that DataCurve offers?
Yeah, I think the best way to reach out to us is through LinkedIn. Uh, Follow our page, DataCurve. Find it on LinkedIn, or
Sure.
reach out to me on Twitter. I am at Wanderingscapes. It's a we'll put the
You
handle
put it in. Yeah, yeah,
in the
yeah.
credits there. But yeah, definitely happy to talk more about how we can help companies, organizations, and even individuals figure out how how the next generation of marketing and customer engagement, and essentially how to create those one-on-one connections with your users, they need to be put in place.
Yeah.
Thank you
Yeah.
for having us. This is fantastic, and definitely looking forward to how this show grows as well, and learning from all the other guests you'll have.
Yeah. No, thank you so much, like I said, for supporting, me. And the idea really was to just kind of have these conversations because AI is changing so fast that it's not even humanly possible. I mean, I think I need my AI twin really to go out there and see everything that's happening and then report back to me. And I'm not joking. I think that's a great idea, by the way. So somebody who's listening here might actually take that and build it. So please give me some credit for that. But I
Yeah.
think that'll be great, right? Like to just keep on having a platform where we can have these conversations with innovators and trailblazers like you, and who are essentially paving the way, right? Like for solutions in marketing with AI. So thank you again so much, Aman, and I look forward to more sessions and have a lovely weekend.
All right. Thank you so much, Angelina.